Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Parishscope, the kind of the podcast that goes along with the newsletter for St. John's Lutheran Church. I'm Pastor Chris Sansom.
And I'm Casey Dreamus, the contemporary music guy at the church.
And today we have a special guest here. We have a Pastor Simeon Raditz. So he's joining us here today, and this is our first ever guest. How exciting is that?
We've ever had.
How exciting is that?
It's very exciting.
And so with that, I was thinking, because last time I mentioned that I brewed beer. I did. Yes. I mentioned that I brewed beer. And so you know what I did?
You brewed beer?
I brought some beer.
Oh, nice. Hi.
Now, I do, while he's getting that, I have to say, this actually, I do have to take credit for one thing, because I thought we should have him as a guest, because then I can meet my neighbor. Who? And then he said, oh, he's taking a call. And I'm like, oh, crap. Because I live right next to Trinity Lutheran, so I was like, oh, that'd be a perfect excuse, because I've met you a few times, but it's pretty much in passing. So It was like, this will be so great. But yeah, so.
Well, just for the record, we have met before.
Yes, we have. Yeah. And I've met your wife many times. It's very lovely out with the kids and everything. So
now, Casey,
what?
You're not really a drinker at all.
Not.
But I brought a third cup.
Oh no. Okay.
Just a little taste.
The thing is,
you're not going to like it, and it's okay.
All right.
Because you don't have to like it.
Because the thing is, whenever somebody, I get people oftentimes who are like, I'm going to find the drink for you. And they get really excited because they're like, I found the perfect thing for you. And then I drink it and they're like, you like it? And I'm like, no. And I feel horrible because it's breaking their heart that they didn't like find the right thing for me. Yeah. But I'm just like, sorry, I'm just not.
No, I'll be honest with you, Casey. You're probably not going to like this.
Okay.
But I'll pour a very small amount.
Yeah, I'll try. I'm a team player here.
The pastor influencing everybody to drink.
This ain't your normal type of podcast. Anyway, okay.
There you go. And you don't have to drink all of it.
You have to drink it all at once, right?
Okay, so
that is not a shot. No.
So the beer that I have for us this fine and wonderful evening. And by the way, we've never had beer on
we've
this.
Never done this.
We talked about I talked about this last week, and I thought, if Simeon's coming, maybe I'll bring something. I called this one the 617, and it garnered that title because that's the alcohol percentage. I've brewed this about 4 or 5 times now.
617.
Yeah,
6
exactly. Yeah.
It's 6.
I will not be partaking tonight.
You can clean your car with it.
I don't know. 617. I don't even know physically if that's possible. So no, it's 6.17% alcohol, but it is an Oktoberfest. Is what nice. It is. So it's a seasonal beer, right?
Yes. Yeah.
It's very seasonal. But yeah, so
Prost.
Cheers. All right.
He likes it.
It's actually, you know what I have to say, not horrendous.
Yeah,
and that sounds bad because I know you brewed it.
No, it's
but
fine.
I mean, for me as someone who really doesn't drink beer, I wasn't like, oh man, which usually is my reaction.
Yeah.
Really not bad.
I brew beer because it's fun and it's an enjoyable hobby. It's a good pastor hobby because, then life gets busy and you can just let it sit there for a month or two and you're like, okay,
yeah.
And so yeah, I kind of like it. But yes, there is this evening I brought some beer because we had a guest and
thank you.
I thought why not?
Really not bad.
So, Pastor Raditz, since we have you here this fine evening, and this is going to be, I think the makeup of the show tonight is just really going to be us kind of talking to Pastor Raditz because Pastor Raditz just recently took a call. And if you're like anything like a lot of people in churches, you're probably wondering what in the world that is. And so, Pastor Raditz, can you explain a little bit of the call process for us?
Sure. Yeah, so behind the call process, like the theology or the teaching behind the call, is that God extends a call through his church. So he uses human means to extend a call to a particular congregation or other organization. Mm-hmm. In this case, it was Concordia University, Chicago. Yeah. So it's a little different than like the traditional congregational call process, but it's in a lot of ways the same. Yeah.
You're called to a very specific group of people. The youth on campus, I shouldn't say youth, because there's actually a lot of second career guys and stuff like that. So you'll have a lot of duties, I think, right?
Yeah, so I'll be the chaplain for students, probably mainly, but also faculty and staff. So planning the chapel services Monday through Friday.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be director of the pre-seminary program, so guys who are thinking of going on to seminary. They'll be kind of under me, and I'll be doing some extracurricular education with them. And then the student-led campus ministries. So any like student-led campus ministries that are going on, I just oversee those and help facilitate those and do some training.
So obviously, when I ask you that question, I'm a pastor. I've had some calls myself. I have accepted a call. I have returned some calls. I mean, so I kind of understand at least a little bit how the process works. Of course, having gone through it myself. But one of the things I think that I, myself, I'm curious about, if I'm really honest.
Mm-hmm.
And it really is like, well, you're going to a college campus. This is your alma mater, right? This is where you attended,
right,
for your undergraduate.
Yeah.
What else are you teaching classes? Like, what? How else are they doing that? Like, and what are you teaching, and how do you decide that? I mean, this is all brand new to me. It's like exciting. So,
so I'm actually not teaching, as far as I know. I'm not teaching any classes formally. I said, it'll be more informal, extracurricular teaching that goes on with a lot with the pre-seminary students, but also leading Bible classes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
As far as I know, no professorial duties. I do not have the credentials to do that.
Yeah. Well, but you guys, I will say this though, and this is one of those things like sometimes when I think back to my seminary days or even my sewer days, I did not go to Concordia, Chicago. I despise everything Concordia. I'm joking.
Go Cougars. Bulldogs stink.
They're the best. Like Bulldogs.
Those are the
school mascots. But when I think back to my own day, my old days of attending colleges and so on and so forth, I think that's, if I really did have a complaint, it was that a lot of my professors, though, had no real experience. They didn't have that parish life experience. And I remember, again, some of them did. I'm not going to sit here and say all of them didn't, but some of them did. But a goodly portion of them would try to give you advice. And then when you get out into the real ministry, when you kind of get out into the real world of people, you're kind of that really wasn't the greatest advice ever, I remember in seminary, and I'll be honest, like this is part nostalgia. I don't know if you ever had Warner, but we had a emeritus professor there, and he was the guy who was teaching our what was that class called? I think it was just called pastoral theology, and basically laying out the here's what your workday would look like, and
right,
and everybody's in there doing the math, and you're like, well, if I followed this schedule, I would only see my family for 15 minutes.
Right.
and I remember the professor being like, well, you could take your kids to work with you. Like that was his response. And yeah, you're just not going to see your family. And, if you don't like that, bring them to church. It's okay.
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty common. I don't know. We've talked about this before, but I studied music, and it's the same. It's pretty much the same thing. It's like a lot of people who, especially music education, they never taught in a school, besides college. So they're like, well, what you got to do is you got to teach kids this when they first start, and then you get into the real job, and you're like, oh yeah, that does not work at all. They don't want to do that. They're not even interested in music. It's like you got to start off slow, and just a lot of times that sort of thing happens.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. And I'll be honest, I don't know if you know the answer to this, Simeon. Actually, maybe you do. Maybe I'll be honest, I haven't really put a whole lot of thought into it. Maybe I should. But, I know, so for instance, I know, from the pastoral office side of things, the office of the keys, the fact that the congregation members are the ones who are ultimately doing that calling, the outward calling.
Right.
In seminary, we would sometimes talk about an inward calling and an outward calling. You need both. You need both to be a pastor. You got to have that inward calling, that desire, that movement that God is bringing you to go and pursue that career. But you got to have that outward calling too, where saints from a church, congregational members, if you will, say, yeah, we want that guy, or we want that person to be our pastor. And so you need to have kind of both sides of that call. Now, the interesting thing is, being that you're going to a college, you have kind of a congregation. I mean, is it mainly the faculty member that would make up that element, or?
Yeah, I think so they've actually, at Concordia, they changed the title for the position to chaplain. And I think that's just to clarify really what it is. So I mean, when you think of like a hospital chaplain or a military chaplain, they don't have like a congregation per se. They more assist whoever the person's actual pastor might be, right? So if you have like someone in the military, obviously, Chris Sansom can't like fly to wherever they're stationed and give them the sacrament. So if there's a military chaplain, he can assist you with that responsibility. So that's kind of more how I see this role, less as like I am their pastor, and more as I am an assistant to their pastor because he can't minister to them in this place.
That's interesting.
So I think that's more, and this is new to me too. Like I haven't really thought of chaplaincy a lot, so I'm still kind of wrapping my head around it. But that's kind of more how I'm starting to think about it.
Right.
So I think there would be not a lot of, but maybe in certain circumstances, some collaboration even with these students.
Sure.
Pastor back home.
Oh,
sure.
That's interesting.
And would you then? I'm sorry.
I was going to ask one question because, again, as someone who doesn't really know completely, like is this? I mean, it's similar to what you're doing now, but in ways different. Is it? Yeah. At any point, did anybody know like you would be interested in this, or this was just out of the blue? Someone called you and was like, "Hey, we thought of you," and you're like, "Okay." Like, was that?
Yeah, that's a good
shock, or what?
It was a shock.
Yeah.
I mean, I've told many of our congregation members that we saw ourselves staying here for quite a while longer. I mean, we don't know how long, but
right.
We weren't making plans to go anywhere. We love the church here. It actually happened. I went there, so I'm an alum.
Oh,
and so one of my professors is still there, or a couple of them are still there, but one in particular who called me and said, "Hey, this came open. You should." And this is kind of different than the typical call process too.
Yeah.
It's a university, so you actually do have to apply.
Oh, okay.
So so he's like, "Hey, you should apply," and I talked to him a bit, got off the phone, told my wife Lauren about it, and we were both like, no, we're not going to do that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of just like, we'll just not do that. And then someone else called me. He's there now. He's just recently, he's been there for maybe 9 months. Pastor Kendall, I don't know if you know him, Chris, but he has a mother-in-law who goes to St. John's in Pekin.
Oh, okay.
So I met him through like continuing education.
Chad Kendall, right?
Yeah, Chad Kendall.
Yeah.
I took a couple classes, or one class with him, and then he came down, heard me preach a couple times, and he called me like 2 weeks later or something.
Yeah,
I think independently of Professor Sorensen, who is the guy who called me first, and so when he called and he's like, "Hey, you should consider this," so I was just like,
should look at
it. Maybe exactly. So I looked a little harder, and I'm like. After talking to some people and getting some counsel,
right?
I did apply, kind of thinking like this ain't gonna go anywhere.
Yeah.
And it did.
Well, it's interesting because like we've talked about this in private, but not on the podcast. That like I grew up with like going to a non-denominational church, and so when someone would say like, well, this thing came up and it just seemed like the right time and everything, but at the same time you're like. You knew they were looking, though. Like, there was no denying that they were looking for something, because otherwise they wouldn't know that something was, like, 3 states away was open, So, I like, the call process seems very, like, nice in one way, to not put it too mechanical, but nice in the fact that it feels less, like, I don't think people feel as betrayed, like you were looking for somewhere to go, and I know this,
Yeah.
you had to apply, but people were reaching out. I mean, you were still being
Right.
reached. People were reaching out.
We
to
knew
you.
that this position was open because we knew the campus pastor who
Yeah.
had taken a call elsewhere, and no thought crossed my mind
Yeah,
of like,
right.
I'm going to apply to that. I
Yeah.
want to do that because
Yeah.
honestly, I didn't.
Yeah. But that's often
Yeah, and
oftentimes a
and
good
I mean,
thing,
you know,
think.
that's
Yeah.
and that is a good point though. Like Pastor Raditz is saying, like the calls that I've received, I've never once called up a church and said, "Hey, you know, could you put me on a call list, or can you guys call me?" Or you know, I've never once did that, and you know, and I will also say there's a certain freeing element. Now, not all churches interview. I will say that.
Right.
And there is some theological debate on that, and I don't think this is quite the podcast to go into all the details and the murk of should we have interviews or should we not. But there are some churches and some guys, some pastors that firmly believe that you shouldn't do interviews. Others are obviously in agreement; they think you should.
So no interview, as in they just like send you a call and like that's it. If you accept it, you get brought in.
Yep.
That's okay. Well, that's interesting.
Well, and I'm not gonna name names here, but but I did have one of those. I received
Yeah.
a call that way. One of the calls that I've received over the years was done exactly that way. I got a call probably a month prior or so from their circuit visitor. And this is kind of generally speaking. I mean, again, you don't want to break it down into like, well, there's this step and then there's this step. But at times it does kind of feel that way. So I got a call from their circuit visitor asking me if there's any reason I couldn't be on a call list. I said no. There was none. And the next call I got, actually the next text, or no, it was an email I got, said, your name is on the list. They meet on Sunday. Now, it was Saturday when I got this email. On Sunday, you have received the call. You'll get the paperwork in a week. Like, okay,
no, wow.
there we go.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Like that, and like I said, they didn't know me from any, you know. I mean, maybe they looked me up online. I don't know, but generally speaking, now I've had a lot of times where I've been able to do interviews too, and whenever I do the interviews, there is something freeing about that, right? Because unlike a lot of jobs and a lot of like businesses, I'm not seeking to like
Right.
go somewhere. So I can be just completely honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know.
You can interview them.
Yeah.
That's why I like
Yeah.
that seems, and I'm sorry because I know it's debated, but I feel like that's crazy because part of the interview process is to make sure you as the future employer actually want to be employed by them. Maybe
Right.
not. Maybe employer or employee isn't the right word for this sort of situation, but in general, I mean, it's like you have to know whether this is the right fit for you as much as it is like the other way around. And so
Yeah.
an interview, all right, I'm getting the like. Let's not get into this.
No, I mean, but that's
okay.
interesting because so there is a kind of this debate over like how human it can get, and I'm of the side that God always works through human means. Like this is a big Lutheran piece, right? That like God works through means to provide daily bread. So like mom and dad, they work, and God through that provides for the children or whatever.
Right, yeah.
So like with the call process, like God calls a pastor, but he works through his church and he works through all these human elements. And
Yeah.
I don't think we need to get like all like, I'm feeling the Holy Spirit or I'm not feeling, or the Holy Spirit's not involved. The Holy Spirit works through his people. So I think it's okay. It's okay to interview, or you don't have to interview. I mean, I think it's a lot of that's human freedom.
Right. Yeah.
And we just trust that the Lord is using his church to extend the call.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know if that
No, I think that made perfect sense. Honestly, that made really good sense.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. I just so whenever.
That's why I'm here, man. That's why I'm here.
But no, like whenever we get to these debated topics, see, here's the thing that I always do. Like whenever we get to these debated topics, I obviously hold a perspective. I hold a view. But the thing is I feel like if I say, okay, here's what I think, like then the other side really, doesn't get to put their view out there. And and especially whenever, like, it's one thing when we're saying, okay, here's the difference between, like, say, Lutherans and Baptists. But, like, it's different whenever you're like, these are both Lutheran, and these are both LCMS Lutheran, and you have pastors in our synod that very deeply and very strongly believe both.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of guys that very strongly believe like interviews should be done, absolutely working through human means. Then there's other guys that are like, look, you know, if the church feels compelled and they give me the call, and if I, you know, even if I go visit and I feel like the Holy Spirit is calling me there, I'm just going to take it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of way they go. And I mean, you know, and they kind of want to take out about as much of the human means of it as you can. You'll never completely devoid it of the human means. Like we're human, so it's a part of it. But yeah, that's kind of their argument is they just want to take out as much of the human aspect as possible, allow the Holy Spirit to do its work. And so that's kind of that debate, you know, and kind of going back and forth. I've always kind of been more with Pastor Raditz. I even interviewed fresh out of seminary. They allowed us to do interviews, and that was interesting. So
yeah, I was so kind of in. I didn't know if I was supposed to prepare for this or not.
No, you're fine. Yeah.
But I was thinking of so like and this isn't with pastors. This is with deacons. Like so in Acts chapter 6, right? The church is to pick out men who are, you know, of good report and well respected, and they're godly men. So these are men who, you know, the people who are seven men picked out. 7 deacons to serve. Anyway, the men who are picked out, like the church. I mean, the church is, you know, the church knows them well.
Yeah.
And says these guys are, you know, they would do well. Or like Titus, he's told to appoint pastors, you know, to the various congregations, and so, you know, these guys are known to the church that is placing them. So
yeah.
I don't know. It seems not wrong to interview a guy and get to know him, and to be like, is he like, you know, is he a good?
They need to
is
be
he
reputable,
a good,
right?
Yeah, is he a good pastor? Is
we
he?
We should work on that. I'm joking. I figured someone would like that. But.
Anyway, yeah.
Oh man. See. Waded into the debate waters. Just had to do it.
I'm sorry. You invited Pastor Raditz, and he's leaving the area.
I was going to say, I mean,
right, let's see how many people we can tick off.
I was going to say, there's no better time because you're done, right? And so it's like, the gloves are coming off tonight.
Yeah,
anything you want to say? No, I know. I'm just
but the Lutheran world is way too small to do that.
You guys are such a tight community that you can't.
Yeah.
I mean, because there's people. I said something to one of the people at church about like, oh yeah, we're going to interview the pastor at Trinity Lutheran, and they were like, yeah, he just took a call. I'm like, how does everybody know this? It's like everybody knew it, and I'm like, how do you guys know this? It's
everybody knows.
I couldn't tell you anything about any of the pastors in my town besides my Well, I can tell you a few, but like I didn't know what was going on with all of them.
It's great though,
yeah.
right? We have a close bond and know each other well.
And the school helps, I think, a lot too with Good
It
Shepherd
does,
Lutheran.
yeah.
I mean, just helps. It's a small town. It's a small town.
You know, speaking of other churches, I got this email. It was a letter in the mail. It was from one of the Baptist churches in town. And I'm not even quite sure where it was, but he was a new pastor. He had sent his kids to Concordia in Peoria.
Okay.
It was like Witt something, his last name. But they were doing this prayer vigil, and he's like, hey, I think he might have been inviting me to like attend, or I can't remember.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I wrote him back, and I just said, I'm actually leaving town. Sorry, I won't get the chance to get to meet you or anything, but I asked them to pray for me, and they prayed for me, and they prayed for Trinity, they prayed for my family, and they sent me a card back afterwards, and it was kind of nice, you know. Yeah.
I've known a few Baptists in my day. They're not as bad as people say
no.
They're all terrible.
I
was kidding.
I'll take their prayers for sure.
Yeah. I can't. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm going to speak poorly about the Baptists, but I can't speak. I I can't speak too poorly. Too many of my family members are Baptists.
My favorite thing though is it's really. I mean, I feel like it's low hanging fruit when it comes to jokes. But all you have to do is like any characteristic. Like, well, you know who's always late? The Baptist, and people will just laugh and lose their minds. And you could do the same thing a week later, be like, oh, you know who's always late? Those Mennonites. And people are like, I don't know. It's just hilarious. People love it. They love it, you know. So.
Yeah, a lot of our Lutheran jokes about potlucks, like I'm pretty sure those apply to like 10,000 other churches.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there's a Mennonite church close to my house, and they would always be like, "Well, you know what Mennonites are like with food," and I'm like
every other Christian.
Every other Christian group, yeah.
I used to work at a concert venue, and we had an event coordinator who he would talk about like the Christian concerts, like Winter Jam and stuff like that would happen. And it was like, well, the problem is like, you know, beer doesn't really sell, like alcohol doesn't really sell as much at those sort of events. But he goes, all you got to do is ice cream. He's like, Christians will eat the crap out of ice cream. And he's like, no matter how much ice cream you buy, you'll be sold out. I mean, you could buy twice as many as last year. It's gone. It doesn't matter. And it was, I'll never forget that. It was just so funny when he said that. But it's like, he was dead serious. He's like, yeah, that's what you do. No beer, just ice cream. They'll buy it like crazy.
Yeah. And the thing is, I think I believe him. I think he's right on.
And so, you know,
pretty much right on the money on that one.
Yeah, they love it. You know? So how different? I mean, I know you said it's kind of similar but different in certain ways. So you're going through. Okay, you feel like you're sort of the middleman between them and their pastor, is what you're kind of saying.
Kind of, or just kind of. Maybe like a proxy for their pastor,
Gotcha.
while you know, because they're away from home, and
right, yeah.
And
then, so what other things are going to change for you as like your job? Like, what else are you from what you working at Trinity now, and then?
So I mean, I guess just really practically speaking, you know, like at Trinity, I work. I mean, I'm on call all the time, but I work in the office like Tuesday to Friday, and I usually work Saturday too. Getting ready for Sunday, preach Sunday, Monday off. This will be Monday through Friday, chapel every day.
Oh wow! Are
And
you giving sermons every day?
No, so some of the days I will. So some of the chapel services won't have a sermon.
Okay,
they'll just be prayer services.
Gotcha.
Like I think once or twice a week, and then 3 of those days will be preaching services. And I'll probably be doing one of those on average per week, and then it'll be my responsibility to find other pastors in the area to preach for those. And then I also preach Wednesday night, and that's a communion service. So that's my week, and then Sunday I don't preach.
Oh wow!
So I'll actually be at another local congregation. I'll be a member there with my family.
Oh, okay.
And I'll attend there.
Wow. That's got to be wild.
I'm really excited about that. Like I've been preaching a lot in the past 6 years about just the responsibility of parents. I mean, not every sermon, but I mean just
every
at least a
single sermon.
few times a year. I'll be talking about
like,
that.
It's
like they're like two parents. No, I'm kidding. You can cut that out. But it'll be nice to be a father in the pew and to assist my wife and teach my children how to.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's really great.
I'm excited about that, and I'm sure eventually, probably not the first few months, but eventually I'll be asked also to fill the pulpit every once in a while. If some guy's on vacation or in need. But
you'll be like a gift for that church.
Yeah, and that'll be nice. That'll be nice.
So like,
we all know that's needed.
I'm really not feeling well this morning. Raditz is in the pews over there, so we're covered. Don't worry about it.
Let me think of something.
Just tell him to talk about parenthood or something.
That's what he's going to talk about.
He's got that on lock. So.
Oh man! Now everyone's going to think that all I talk about in the pulpit is the
all the college students are going to be like,
should you spank your kid or not spank your kid?
All he does is talk about parents. Good gracious.
Goodness.
This week's sermon is entitled "The Slap?" Question mark.
Usually we talk about Jesus, but
well, that's a good thing. I will say, because I left for church on Sunday, and man, Trinity looked packed. this past week.
It
on,
was.
Yeah.
I mean, it was the biggest.
There-
So we had
cars
good
in the street.
yeah.
Parked on the
Good
street.
Shepherd sang.
Yep.
And we had
Oh.
the biggest Good Shepherd turnout we've ever had. And
wow.
like a lot of the families stayed through the whole service. The service was
that's nice.
an hour and 45 minutes long.
Wow.
And the reason was not because my sermon was 45 minutes long.
See, I'm
my
a
sermon was
short preacher,
18 minutes
everybody.
long. But it was the communion distribution. So we all gather at the rail, like at
Yeah.
St. John's, but it's smaller. It's smaller, and we usually don't have that many people.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
we didn't change anything
Yep.
because it was like the last service, and
Right,
going
yeah.
up to the rail, going up to the altars, it's a
Oh, yeah.
it's a special thing.
Oh
It's-
yeah.
And everybody, you know what? I'm sorry, but
And no one was no one was
people
impatient.
can handle
Yeah.
a long service from time to time.
Yeah, and they
You know.
Calm down, people.
and then they knew it was like the farewell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and
Absolutely.
Godspeed for
Absolutely.
yeah. So it was really nice. I mean, it was the most packed I've seen it. The longest communion distribution I've ever been a part of.
Yeah.
So,
I'm sure.
but it was nice. I mean,
Yeah.
just the voices and it was great.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. Kind of focusing a little bit on the call. I know a lot of people, whenever I try to explain it at church, because again, I've received a call a few times, and the way I always kind of say is like, look, I mean, basically what it comes down to is I have a call to St. John Sam Prairie at that point, but I have a call to wherever it is, and so I end up having two calls. Well, I can't have two calls. I can only have one.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of that up in the air portion of things. And I'll be honest, whenever you receive a call, and I mean, I don't know if you've ever experienced this in the same way, but I'll be honest, it's incredibly hard for me. It's always been, I almost see, and I don't want to say this either. I was about to say I almost hate getting them, and there's a truth in that because like you have to, if you're going to do it right, you have to be diligent with how you approach it. You have to kind of say, you kind of constantly got to be probing and saying, well, is God calling me here, or does God still want me to be at Sam Prairie, for instance. And that's a real challenge. That's a real challenge. And again, I don't know if for you, because you've had more than one call now. You've had a few,
Yeah, this was only my second one. I've had
Okay.
So the nice thing about the interview thing is usually before they interview you, they ask you, are you open to considering a call at this time before they actually extend a call.
Yeah,
Yes.
officially.
And so sometimes I know pastors differ on this too. This
Yes,
is
they
another
do.
area of debate. Like some will take like every time they receive a call like that, some will be like, okay, I'll consider it. Whereas others like myself will determine like, is this something that we could even do right now? Is this something
right.
that is my church in the middle of something and they we can't handle this right now and they need me or
Right. something
something like that. And now that pastors are more in need in our synod, there's a shortage of
Yeah,
pastors. These calls, especially this is just how it is, just for a younger pastor,
Yeah.
they start to roll in. And, if I had gone along with every interview, it would have been like, kind of like every month for
Yeah.
a year.
Yeah.
And I just didn't think that was good for the
Yeah.
congregation, to kind of be thrown into that angst with me
Well,
every.
you're the nice guy who's like, they're asking out the girl and she's like, there's no chance and I'm just going to cut you off.
Yeah, right.
Instead of the girl who's like, we can be friends, but like, don't get any ideas. And they're like, well, maybe there's a chance. So you're like, that's I think an honorable thing of you.
Yeah.
I think it's important to be honest.
Yeah.
But I
No,
think,
come on.
just like anything, and again, this is where
Like,
this
I just
whole-
had twins. No.
but
My wife just had twins, actually. We don't. Yeah. Anyway.
I know what you mean. We don't have to get in that debate. We all know you didn't carry the twins. My wife's pregnant right now, so I said that.
Oh, congratulations.
Oh, thanks. I said that the other day that we're having a kid, and someone, no, you're not we. I'm like, all right, jeez. I know I'm not carrying the baby. Okay. Sorry.
Well, you got to be, you just got to be careful these days.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Oh man. I know.
Anyway, Chris,
I wasn't going to go there.
Take us away from. It's my fault.
No, but I was going to say that the other side of that coin though is also you don't want to. You get some people that just like it where they are, and so they just never open themselves up for a call.
Right.
For the most part, as long as there wasn't anything pressing or something else going on, like huge, I have almost always been open for a call. Now, there have been a time or two where I said, no, this just isn't the time. But for the most part, I always say, well, I'm always open, I will also say this is kind of the awkward negative part of interviewing. And again, for the sake of the guilty or the innocent or however you want to put it, I won't mention any names. But there was a church that issued me a call once, and during the interview process, they asked if I was any good at something. And I won't say what it was, but they said, "Are you any good at this?" And I said, "You know what? Because again, this is the beauty of these things. I'm not trying to get a job."
Yeah.
So I'm like, I was honest. I was like, look, if that's what you're looking for, I'm the wrong guy. I'm like, that's just not my area. I said, I'm weak at that. I mean, maybe one day I'll grow into it or something. I'm not going to say it. But
You gave them hope. You'll grow into it. That's the girl saying, there's no, we'll just be friends.
Maybe.
See? That's what I'm saying.
But you see, that's the thing, though. Like, I was completely honest. I was like, look, not me. Not my strength area. No good at it.
Yeah.
They called me anyway. Like, okay.
Because you gave him hope. They thought he'll grow into it. He said he'll grow into it. It'll be fun.
What the sad
This
thing
is your counselor for the next.
What the sad thing is?
call.
I think Casey's actually correct.
That's right, yeah.
but that was just it. Like, so I get there because they call me, and I get there, and I'm like walking through the church, and they're like, "Yeah, this church is really hurting in this area. We're really hoping you can turn us around." And I'm just like, I didn't say that when I was there talking to him, but I was like, yeah, I specifically said that's not what I do. Like, this is something I am no good at. Like, believe people whenever they tell you they're no good at something. Like, right? I mean,
but there's one of the deacons or something are saying like, but he could grow into it.
But he could grow into it. Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's what it is.
Oh,
man.
sorry.
Now we get a lot of options with that. Like I said, him and I were talking about walking through churches and doing all this kind of stuff. But you really don't get that option with the very first call that you receive from the seminary. Now you can actually return that call. It's very, very rare, but usually it's like I had a buddy that did that once. His child needed some medical attention, and the Children's Hospital was right there in St. Louis, and he wanted the child to go there. Yeah. So he returned the call. So that's a real rare exception. Actually, I'm not even sure if he returned it. I think they had him all slotted, ready to go, and he said, no, not this. And so I don't even think he ever even received one.
Now, just so, because this is what confuses me and most people. Okay. Returning means you were, essentially declining it. Like they gave you a piece of paper that says like yes or no, and then you handed it back to them and were like no.
Right.
Yes. So that is correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
That's why my congregation was confused last year when I said I've returned that call.
That's what every time. Like, that's what happens every time.
And then I said I'm staying. And then exactly. They're like, oh,
that's what every time we don't know what to do. And we've really sorry, I'm getting you off.
No, it's completely okay.
We've discussed because when do you tell them that you have a call? Do you tell them, which I know you said you only done two, but do you tell them like at the end of the service, like at the very end?
Yeah, I do because I don't want to distract them the whole service.
But I will say, as the guy who does the music, when Pastor Chris comes up and goes, I've gotten a call, then I'm sitting up there with a guitar, and it's like, all right, see ya. And we're like, the whole band's looking at each other like, what do we do now? Because we finished our songs. And we need a song that's like the call song or something. That's just like a somber, Like
Somber.
something that we because we just don't know what to do. We just sit up there and then we're like, oh, all right, we start taking off our stuff. Like I don't know what to do.
Our organ, we just played Queen Mary's funeral march.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
Exactly. That's what we just need something. I guess Oregon. Do they play something after you do that though?
Yeah. So
Okay,
the way,
see,
yeah,
that's
just the
what
way our
they do the postlude.
we do a hymn and then announcements and then postlude.
Okay.
So it's just.
Okay. See that. Okay. Then I need to get something.
Need to get a postlude going on.
I need to get a postlude.
Guitar postludes.
Yeah, a contemporary postlude.
Contemporary postlude.
Anyway, sorry, personal thing.
No.
but you go on.
But no, actually, what I was gonna talk to you about, because this is actually one of those fascinating things. So I get to talk to Simeon about this. But like, so whenever I took my call, my very first call from seminary was 2008. Smartphones were not really around.
Mm-hmm.
And so I came in right at the end of this, and I'm wondering if anybody still did this back at St. Louis, because you went to St. Louis, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that's right. You went to St. Louis.
Hey.
But they would sit. So we have this big call service, and all the pastors to be are sitting up front, all dressed in the clericals and the suit and everything else, because we were told to. No, it was good. And then you stand up and you kind of go to the front of the line. Now, if you've interviewed, you kind of have a general idea, but not always. I mean, like even for me, I interviewed with like 2 different places. Some people interviewed with as many as 5 to 10, depending. And you have no idea, so you really don't know where you're going.
Yeah, I had no idea. I had no interview or anything.
Really?
Yeah.
For Pekin. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so you walk up and they announce your name, and then they announce where you're going. And again, you're just
Really?
kind of like, okay, off I go.
This is mind blowing to me.
Oh yeah. It's exciting. Like so, they do it in April, and if you ever want to watch, you should. They live stream it every year. You can watch it. Yeah.
Gosh. Okay.
And here's the thing. Like so, in the back row of the chapel is where all the women would be. No, I mean actually, a lot of it was wives.
The wives. Oh,
Yeah.
so
A lot of the wives.
their reactions are better than the.
They would sit back there with like.
That's
They-
what I want to do.
Say in 2008 anyway, they would sit back there with like Randy McNally. You know what I mean? The atlas,
Yeah.
the book atlas,
Yeah.
because you don't know where you're going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they have the whole atlas. It's like the United States, like,
Yeah,
and they're like you're going-
McHenry, Pennsylvania.
yeah, and they're like Pennsylvania,
What?
Pennsylvania. You know,
McHenry?
they're like looking up Pennsylvania, going, where are we going? Where are we going? You know,
Oh man, that is.
and
funny.
every now and again, one of the women would yell like, "Oh man!" You know, like in the back, you just hear some voice.
So my father-in-law was second career.
Okay.
And he vicared. He did his vicarage. So vicarage is the 3rd year internship, and then you go back to seminary
Yeah.
for the 4th year. And he internshipped in Waterloo, Iowa. And then when it came, he did his 4th year. And then when it came time for the call service, my wife, who was I can't remember what grade she was in, but she was in elementary school, and they're sitting there for the service, and they announce where he's going, and they announce Iowa. And the kids start crying, like we don't want to go back to Iowa. But Iowa's a fine place.
Yeah, Iowa's a great place.
They got a great wrestling program, or at least they did back in the day. When I did wrestling, it was like, if you want to be good, you should go to Iowa.
There you go.
Gotta go to Iowa.
I wasn't good, so
Yeah.
I never pursued that. But where are you from originally?
So I was born in North Carolina. My father's a pastor.
Okay.
So his first call, since we're talking about calls, was in Catawba, North Carolina, at Redeemer Lutheran Church, and then he was there for 12 years, and then he received a call to go to Lancaster, Ohio. So I was 5 when that happened.
Oh, wow.
So I really grew up in southeastern Ohio.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, Ohio Mosley. How long was he there?
He's still there.
He's still there. Oh wow. Okay.
So
you really grew up, like you didn't move around that much.
No. So I'm 32 now, and so 27 years he's been
wow.
there.
Yeah.
Man.
Probably looking to retire sometime next year, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So what got you to go to like? Well, I don't know. Are there a lot of schools out that way, or Chicago is like the closest real place to go for that?
For
college.
my parents went there.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
My dad grew up in Chicago, actually.
Oh, okay.
And then my mom grew up in East Peoria.
Oh, yeah.
which is actually how part of the. So my placement director, he had been pastor at Trinity in Peoria. So he had been my grandparents' pastor.
Oh, wow.
And he was the placement director, and so I think he intentionally placed me in Pekin, knowing that I'd be close to.
Oh, that's nice.
My grandmother and my aunt and uncle, which was really nice.
Yeah, that is really nice.
It was great.
Yeah.
My grandfather taught at Washington School, actually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Sheesh.
Lots of connections here.
Yeah.
Lots of connections.
As you said, it's a small community. You guys all.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're connected. It's like with me. I mean, I'm just a music guy, but it's like you pretty much have some connection to somebody. It's either you play with this guy, or you know this person, or you took lessons from this person. It's like somebody connected to them somehow. So, but I'm sure with that, it's even probably more like tight knit.
I mean, again, it can be. I mean, at the same time, like I again thinking back to my own call day, like, my at that time, my wife's family, a lot of her family lived in Minnesota. But really, I was open to most of the Midwest. I was assuming I was going to go to like Missouri, maybe Southern Illinois, someplace like that. I had never set foot in Wisconsin. Never in my life. I had been to Minnesota maybe 3 or 4 times. Nebraska was about as far north as I went, and that's really not north. It's over. And they call out Wisconsin, and I was thinking, oh, it must be like southern Wisconsin. And then I looked up on a map, and I'm like, whoa, we're going up north.
Wow.
It was like north central Wisconsin. And I was like, okay, But yeah, I didn't know anybody at all. Like.
That's crazy because I work for St. John's, but I didn't go through seminary and all that stuff, so I don't really have the whole call thing. But it's like there's we talk about stressful, like being a pastor can be a stressful job, and it's like that to me feels like kind of a stressful, like, oh, you got a call 12 hours away from here.
Yeah,
you want to go or whatever,
Yeah,
that seems like. That's a lot, but I guess that's what you signed up for. So in a way,
yeah,
yeah.
You just kind of go.
Yeah, but it's nice you'll get to go to Northern Illinois now. Anything below Chicago is Southern Illinois. To most people in Chicago,
I guess it's nice.
So do they now? I don't know if this is important or whatnot, but do they have a lot of places have a parish, or like do they have a parish up there, like a
parsonage,
or a parsonage?
Yeah.
Parish.
No, that's okay. I know what you meant. They don't. Unfortunately, because Chicago, obviously, right now the housing market's terrible everywhere, but especially up there.
Yeah.
So that was a big. Again, this is this human element. Like I am a father of children. I'm married to my wife, and so I have to think of them when I'm answering the call.
Yeah.
So where we're gonna live, like it's one thing to worry about it and overly worry about something. It's another thing to be like totally thoughtless. You have to think about it. You have to consider these things, and so that was a big thing for us. Like, are we gonna be able to find a home?
Yeah, I'm sure.
So there were a couple different things they were talking about. You could stay in like some dorm apartment sort of situation.
Kids would love that.
Bring you back.
They would. They probably would love that.
Bunk beds. Yeah.
Yeah, and actually, like I could see some benefits to it, but that actually ended up not being an option. And then, they were looking for vacant parsonages, like churches that have parsonages that aren't being used because they're for whatever reason.
Yeah, right.
And they did find one, and that could have been a possibility, but God opened up another door, and we found a home.
Great,
close enough. It's close to my wife's parents.
Oh, that's nice.
So they'll be up there. Yeah. So
yeah.
So
see,
we're buying
all that
a
stuff
house.
I didn't know.
We're buying a house.
All that I didn't know. Actually, on that front, like I know, you're laughing, you're having a good time right now, and I think that's awesome. But if it was anything like what I experienced whenever I left Wausau, I imagine that this past Sunday, was probably one of the most challenging days of your life, really. There life has challenges. It has ups and downs. I mean, I've experienced some big downs. But at the same time, I really do, I would say top five, some of the hardest days of my life. One of the hardest ones, one of the top 5 was when I left Wausau.
Yeah.
I knew it was the right move. I knew it was the right call. I knew I was going to where God needed me to be, wanted me to be. But that being said, man, that was hard.
Yeah. This past Sunday was hard. But harder than that was the day that I actually announced,
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
"Hey, I am taking it."
Yeah.
That was just, I was sick to my stomach.
Yeah, I'm
just
sure.
gut wrenching. We love these people, and I mean, they're a family. All 4 of our children were born here.
Yeah.
And it's just, we have so many roots here. It's hard when you get that second call, like Chris said, you have at that point 2 divine calls. It's basically like the Lord's holding out 2 hands, and He's saying, "You have a choice." I think it's a gracious act of the Lord to say, you get to pick. Both of these are good.
Yeah.
Like staying here would have been just as God pleasing as going there, and going there is just as God pleasing as
Yeah.
But you got to make that decision,
Yeah.
and it's going to disappoint somebody,
Yeah.
and it's hard. That's really hard.
Yeah.
It's interesting just because this kind of sparked, because we both have young kids, and my wife recently this past year, or she just started a new job. She's a teacher and a music teacher, and so she has the same kids for 4 years, and it's very hard to leave that. And then another thing's like, we had all our kids while she was at this school, and so all those kids look at our children as they remember when she was announced that she was pregnant, and they remember it's like they almost view them as they love these kids because it's
exactly.
So when you leave that, it's very strange because they're just kind of they're just her kids. They don't, it's just a different feel, which I don't think will be the same when it comes to a church. But it's just, it's a weird. It's you have such a weird connection to that, or it's such a personal. They know so much about you.
Yeah. I mean, they are family.
Exactly.
They really are.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh. Did it make it worse well, I mean, I know you said it was no one batted an eye, but did it make it harder that the service went on for an extra 45 minutes?
No.
Or was because you're just I'm trying to hold back tears the whole time?
No, honestly, this past Sunday was actually a really joyful thing because, I don't know. They had time. They had a few weeks to let it sink in, and they had thought about it. And honestly, when I announced it, it was just a lot of sadness.
Yeah.
And then over the weeks, more and more people started to say, I can see why.
Oh, yeah. Well, they want the best for you, too.
Yeah. I can see why you are taking this, or you'd be good here, and very encouraging and that sort of thing. So, it was hard, though.
Yeah. Well, I remember even whenever I saw the announcement, you put out, and the announcement that you had received the call even, and I was like, oh man, that's about a perfect fit as I ever saw one. I mean, you can just tell. You could just tell, and I mean, I've never been a chaplain. I know nothing about the chaplaincy in terms of being involved in it. But
Me neither.
You'll grow into it.
You're going to grow into it.
I don't think I'm good at that, but
You're
going to grow into it. And that's probably how you started this interview. I don't know what I'm doing. But yeah, no, I mean, that was my first thought. I was like, oh my goodness, he's going to take this. This is perfect. This is just, this has Simeon written all over it.
You should have called me and told me that because for the first 2-3 weeks, I was just like, I have no idea what I'm going to do. I have no idea. And part of that was just building up to probably building up to, if I accept this, I have to tell my congregation.
Yeah.
And that sounds awful. And it was awful.
Yeah.
It was
It
awful.
was awful.
Sure,
Yeah, absolutely. And I didn't call you and tell you that because I don't want this pinned on me, right?
No, yeah, fair enough.
All
fair
the
enough.
members of Trinity, he wasn't going to take the call and then you made him do it.
No.
Called him and said, take the job. It's got you written all over it.
You don't need that. Yeah.
But yeah, no, when I saw it though, that was kind of my first instinct. I was like, wow, that's like, I mean, for me, I it would be a no-brainer. I'd be like, no, like that's just not my cup of tea. But I was like, well, that's actually a pretty good fit for Simeon, where you are at life, and and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, that's a really good and well-fitting call. So I mean, yeah. So yeah, I didn't call you up though because I don't want that kind of pressure.
No, thank you.
We got any more questions for Simeon?
Are you a deep dish guy or no?
Good question.
It's weird because we went to college, obviously.
Okay,
where
so
we
yeah,
are.
yeah.
So that deep dish was new then and was amazing. But then I did my vicarage on Long Island, New York.
Ooh.
Whoa.
And so we went into the city a lot, and we got New York style pizza.
Yeah,
and
that
so
brick oven
I'm
pizza's
split.
delicious.
I mean, honestly, I would just say, as one who's not from either area,
Right, you're right.
that they're just completely different, and they're both amazing.
Right, and everybody from those areas would be like, "Oh, come on, pick one."
Yeah, I know. But really, it's just like, what are you feeling? Like, do you want like a really heavy, like,
Yes, yeah.
then
yeah.
go with the deep dish, or
See, that's
And then he went to seminary in St. Louis, where he got cheese whiz on crackers.
disgust? Yeah,
cheese whiz and crackers.
I never bought into that.
A St. Louis style pizza. What is it like?
Emos.
Yeah, like
Emos
Emos. It's like
pizza.
what is it? It's like Provel.
Provel cheese.
Provel
Yeah,
cheese.
it's just.
I
disgust-
see
it's-
now. Having grown up with
It's a
Emos,
sin against humanity.
I actually like
It's an abomination.
Emos.
It's an abomination. It's not in the first 5 books of Moses, but it is an abomination in my sight. So it's not, I guess, technically not a sin. So.
It's what John was envisioning as he's rising out of the sea. Emos pizza.
Well, I've had Colorado pizza,
Oh,
which
yeah?
I think was just someone who's like, all these places have their own pizza. We gotta make up our own pizza. I think that's what it was, because it's just like a pizza with a gigantic crust that's like 3 inches like thick, and then they give you like a bottle of honey.
Oh,
And so
Yeah.
you eat the pizza, and then they're just like, pour honey on the crust and eat it.
Pour honey on it.
I mean,
it
it
good?
sounds like it. I mean, it was pretty good. I mean, the honey was better than the pizza, really. It
Right
was like-
on.
Yeah.
But it definitely was like you could just tell some guy was like, we need our own thing, so I'm just going to make up Colorado pizza, and then that's. And I mean, I couldn't find many places. It wasn't like every place. It was one
Just had
like mom and pop place that.
yeah.
Timmy's had it.
Tonight we went with the church secretary, Patty Loberg, and her husband Walt. My wife and I went with them to, is it Freddy's Driftwood Pizza
Oh.
in Creve Coeur?
Yeah, I've only
I've
been there.
never been.
I mean, it's like a bar, but it's
Is it
Yeah.
good?
it's pizza. It was really good.
Yeah.
It was like amazing. It was.
I can
Super
tell you,
good.
I've actually been there one time. Me and my wife came in, and we stood at the front, and it looked packed. Like I couldn't see a table open.
Yeah.
We stood there for about 15 minutes. No one came
So you
and
left.
said anything to us, so we left because it was like, are we supposed to find it? I don't see any tables.
What do we do?
Like, what do we do? And all the waitresses just kept walking past us. We were like, what do we do? No one's
Yeah,
talking to
that's
us,
too
so we're like,
bad.
I guess we'll just go because
Yeah.
I have heard it's amazing. So
Oh, now I gotta
now
try it.
there's
Yeah.
the other question:
been.
what things is there anything in the area you're like, I'm really gonna miss this
Here
If
in
they-
Pekin.
Yeah.
Well, now I'm Freddy's Driftwood.
Yeah, now that
It's like, why didn't we do this sooner?
yeah.
Um.
Like I was,
I'll miss like McNaughton Park.
Okay.
With the hiking trails.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I really
yeah.
enjoy that. It's nice it's super close by and
Yeah.
go hiking there.
Absolutely.
My family and I, we love walking at Coal Miners Park.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll miss those sorts of things. Restaurant wise, no, not really.
No,
I mean,
see, every time because we have family who lives like in Wisconsin, so,
Mm-hmm.
and every time they come back, it's like we're hitting up Avani's, and then we're hitting up Monocles, like every time.
Yeah.
which I'm fine with.
So
But-
hold on. I think
Go on. Yeah.
I need to get some stuff out in the open here.
Go for it. I'm ready
all
for
right,
this.
Chris.
What is the deal with Avanti's?
It's super cheap,
It
dude.
is. cheap.
Okay, it's super cheap. Now their pizza
Pastors
is
conference,
the pizzas.
lunch, Avanti's. No kidding.
The pizzas are pretty good.
Yeah, it's
Their spaghetti is pretty good. Their bread is pretty. I'll admit they're all pretty good.
yeah.
But like, there's people that come into the area and they're like, "We got to have Avanti's," and I'm like, I don't think there's anything necessarily terrible on their menu per se, but there's nothing that
You
I
just
go.
don't get it.
There's nothing on there that I'm like, oh my gosh, I crave this.
I get what you're saying. My father-in-law, though, is one of those people.
The-
He went to Bradley,
oh yeah.
and, Avanti's is only here and in Bloomington, I think.
yeah.
So whenever he's back here to visit us, he's like, we got to get Avanti's. He's like crazy about it.
Actually, the guy who the pastor who did my wedding is my dad's best friend, and he is from Oklahoma. And when he comes and visits, he'll get to like my dad's house, and they'll be like, "Oh, you want to go to Avanti's?" And he has already stopped and eaten a whole gondola every time. It's like that's his thing. He stops, he picks up a gondola, eats the whole thing, comes to my dad and is like, "Let's go get dinner," and then like they go, and he goes and eats another one.
So for him, it's the gondola.
Yeah.
Okay, and see, I think that's a
the
pretty.
classic.
It's
The
a
bread,
pretty.
the bread,
Yeah, the
sweet
bread, sweet bread. It's a pretty good sandwich. Again, I'm not going to write home about it. I'm not going to crave it, but I will admit it's a good
So
sandwich.
it's interesting. It's interesting to hear. But there's a couple different places though. You got La Gondola, Avanti's, and then there's Michael's in Washington. What was some in? I'm from Washington,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Okay.
the Michael's bread is probably the best, in my opinion.
We're
But
going to get some
you
hate
have to
mail on
try.
that one.
I do like La Gondola.
I love La Gondola
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, super good.
I did have students when I did I did a maternity leave at the high school, and I asked them, I'm like, if you're from Pekin, of La Gondola or Avanti's, and they were like La Gondola.
Yeah.
I was like, okay. And so
Definitely.
I try to stick with that if I have the option. But sorry, we probably stopped talking about food and get on to we got anything else? I just had to ask the deep dish thing because
No,
go to
yeah,
Chicago.
that's
It's
right.
like,
That's
come
a
on.
fair. That's a fair,
Hey, actually,
logical question.
one more food thing, and
Yes.
you can edit
Go-
and whatever
no,
you
go
want to
for
do.
it.
No, we're
but,
good.
down the street from the university, it's on North Avenue. It's called Johnny's Beef, and it's Chicago beef, like sandwich. Like
yeah,
you know what I'm talking about, like
Yeah.
I have no idea what you're talking
the
about.
like
but now I'm
hoagie
curious.
roll and
Yeah.
like the beef with all like the au jus broth, and it's just
Yeah.
like basically your bun's like soaked with
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just a sopping mess. It's great.
it's just like this little box, teeny tiny restaurant, and the line's out the door.
And so that's you're like
Super
going to
good.
be right next to it.
Yeah, and when we were in
right
Seward, I had
Yeah.
Runza.
Runza.
Runza?
Runza?
Yeah,
That sounds
Runza.
like a joke.
It's not. It's a legit restaurant, and it's like
The restaurant's named after what happens afterwards. Oh.
it's like hot pocket sandwiches. You know, it's
Oh,
like all
gosh.
enclosed and everything. It's like right,
Yeah,
right.
that's-
I there's people that are obsessed with Runza. God bless you. You're awesome, but no,
Yeah.
just no. But that's what we had. We had that. We had Enemigos, like real close by campus.
That sounds better.
I'm in agreement. Before we get to church chatter, I should highlight one news story that came out this week, and I'm not going to talk about it, but I feel like it's the elephant in the room.
Mm-hmm.
This week at football, Kelsey, a football player for the Kansas City Chiefs, who I'm sure a lot of well-meaning football fans knew, but was not the most known person ever, is now like the most known football player ever. And why? Why, mind you?
Why?
Because he's dating Taylor Swift.
Oh, yes.
I didn't hear about this.
If you don't know, our podcast somehow
devolves into
frequently
Taylor Swift.
covers Taylor Swift, and we really don't know why, but it just the conversation somehow is. I'm not particularly. I mean, I'm not against Taylor Swift.
Yeah,
I'm
not.
just not a particular like giant fan of hers or anything.
Nope. But she was at the game.
Oh,
And actually,
That's all it takes.
from what I understand, like his Kelsey, this guy Kelsey, his product lines, like his jerseys and stuff, 400% increase
oh my!
since the
gosh.
game.
Wow.
Like Taylor Swift, like her presence, like just people are going nuts over his stuff now, just because
That
they're
was a-
dating,
That's crazy.
Wise strategy for that guy.
right?
Oh yeah, I'm sure it's the best thing he ever did for his career for sure.
And you know
No?
the joke is already like it's good for both of them because
She can write a song.
now when they break up, she'll have a new album.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there? See, now that is always crazy to me because I guess I'm just not like. There's people I would kind of consider like I really like celebrities I really like, but I've never been the type that they're like, well, I wear Wrangler
Yeah.
jeans, and I'm like, I'm buying Wrangler
I'm gonna
jeans
do
forever.
it.
I've just never had that feeling. And like people, man, with like Taylor Swift, it's like she can just be like, I'm wearing these earrings, and they will be sold out.
Oh yeah.
And but I mean, do you have any celebrity that like is like, you would buy anything they would ever endorse?
I mean, not anything, but I mean, I think from my standpoint, like it depends on, a little bit of their history, a little bit of who they are. I mean, let's face it. I mean, if you were going to buy a tactical knife and Sly Stallone was trying to sell you a tactical knife, I'd probably be like, yeah, he might actually know what he's talking about. Maybe not. I mean, what do I know? But it's Sly Stallone, so maybe. I mean, or Dolph Lundgren. I mean,
That's true.
Dolph Lundgren is like insanely smart. Have you ever like looked up that guy graduated like MIT?
Those guys, a lot of those action hero guys are actually a lot smarter than they let on, because they're just, they know what to do and how to sell things. So they're like,
Yeah.
Adrian. And that's
Yeah.
all they got it, But do you have any? Sorry, go on.
Good. I was just going to say, like, Natalie Portman has like a PhD in science, and Dolph Lundgren has his master's from MIT, and I think his is like
my
chemical
gosh.
engineering.
Holy cow.
So yeah, I mean, some of these guys are actually really intelligent. I would buy stuff if they were trying to sell it, as long as it was in their field.
Yeah. I do have 2 degrees, I will say. One is an associate's degree. So, man, some people don't really count that. But, I got technically 2.
Yeah.
Just saying. All right, well, that was not. Anyway, go on. But is there, what's like your top celebrity that you like really, you love following? No one?
I really don't care.
There's no one?
No, I don't think so.
But he's going to go out and buy a Kelsey jersey.
No, I don't even. Yeah, I didn't even hear about
I didn't know
until
that either,
tonight.
to be honest. So.
He's gonna buy a Kelsey jersey because he heard Taylor Swift.
Yeah, that's right.
That's what it's all
Eras
about.
Tour is changing the world.
Changing.
John
the
Wick. You should probably cut this out
Oh,
because people
people don't like John Wick.
I don't know. I mean, you could leave it in. No, so I'll start over. John Wick is pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
John Wick as in Keanu Reeves.
Keanu Reeves.
Okay, yeah, okay.
But
I was just making sure.
If he just changed his name to John Wick, that'd be fine.
Yeah.
Well, he is one of the
He's pretty awesome.
You know what the
Someone out here in the parking lot,
Yeah.
there was a red car that said John Wick for like the longest time. I don't know whose car it was.
Like a
one of our
license
neighbors
plate or something?
apparently is John Wick.
Hey, I didn't know that at all. That's
Just-
interesting.
That's
Just so you
awesome.
know.
Say- okay, I'll look. I'll watch out.
Okay.
You know,
I'm not messing with any
Haven't seen it
neighborhood
for a
dogs,
while, so they might have moved out of town. But
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the best part of that whole movie, which is a bloody movie where he goes around and basically takes out an entire arm of the Russian mafia.
that's why I said maybe cut it out.
No. The best part about the best part of this movie is the whole reason why he does it.
Exactly.
They kill his dog.
Yeah.
Yes.
You don't mess with the man's dog. You
That's
might
right.
kill the Russian mafia.
That's right.
Can I tell you a story? I don't want to
course.
extend this.
No, you
out
go
way
ahead.
too long. So, the latest John Wick movie, John Wick 4, right?
Yeah.
It's the 4th one. So we don't watch movies anymore because we have young children.
Right.
So we never go to the movie theater. And John Wick came out, and I was like, I kind of want to see that. And so I went to. I asked my wife to look up the time that it was showing, and she's like, "Yeah, it's at this time." And so I went over there. I went to the theater, just the one in Pekin, and I got there. I'm like, "I'll have one for John Wick, please." And she's like, "Oh yeah, that doesn't start until like 2 hours from now." And I'm like, "What?" So I called my wife, and she had looked at the wrong day.
Oh yeah.
So I was like really super disappointed, but I was like, just come home. I was like,
Oh, you didn't. So you didn't go back.
no, I was like insanely
Oh.
disappointed. Well, because she has to watch the kid. It was
Yeah,
just like
yeah.
this time window.
Yeah.
we had.
Right. Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
And so I go back, and so then I'm like, okay, oh well. And then another opportunity comes up, but it's like when we had a tornado in town.
Oh man.
And so like the tornado was like earlier on, and so I go later, and I get to the theater, and it's like I'm all excited driving there, like I'm
Yeah.
gonna
Yeah.
see John Wick
Oh,
4.
Yeah.
Shut
The
down.
theater's closed because of the
Oh,
tornado.
Come on.
Even though the tornado's over. So
Oh.
I was just like super disappointed. And so then I'm like, I am going to drive to Morton. And I did. And I saw John Wick.
Oh,
4.
good.
All
for
right.
you.
Good.
Now,
That's awesome.
Quickly, just because this is my only superpower I have, in John Wick 3, the main villain or the guy he fights is Mark Dacascos, I think is how you say his name, who was on the original pilot that didn't become Power Rangers, but it was
man.
the one that they tried before they finally got the pilot that did it. So he could have
been a
Power Ranger. I'm just saying.
And I noticed you're not wearing a Power Ranger shirt this evening.
No
Power Ranger shirt.
I try to wear normal stuff on occasion. But that's so.
Right on. Well, we better get to church chatter.
Yeah, we're getting to the
so we got to go do church chatter. Church chatter. So basically, the things going on at church. We got kind of a quiet week this week and next week, actually. But then after that, we are celebrating our LWML Sunday, which is coming up. I think it's October 15th. We had a great consecration Sunday this past Sunday, which was great. We had a great craft bazaar on this past Saturday. By the way, if you didn't pick up your noodles,
I got 2 bags. I'm just going to say.
That a boy.
That's I have not had them yet. This is the thing. They're like, you need to get the noodles. I'm like, noodles?
Right, the noodles.
And so I got 2 bags, and I've looked up chicken noodle soup recipes.
Oh, man. Yeah,
so
you got to. Oh.
I should have done it tonight so that I could talk about it, but I'll do it next week. I should have had some, and I can.
It's still getting a little warm out. I'll make chicken noodle soup, but it's hard. You don't want to be running the AC and cooking chicken noodle soup. It just seems awkward,
Yeah.
But yeah, so we had that. The LWML Sunday's coming up. And then, of course, our great Harvest Fest is coming up. And we always kind of look forward to that. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we're going to have food. We're going to have pumpkins. We're going to have the kids making their own butter. I'm hoping we get some apples so that we can make our own cider and stuff like that. And, yes, there will be some home-brewed beverages there.
Oktoberfest, right?
Depends on how much I have left. I have 2 other beers ready to go. So to be honest with you, we will have something. I just don't know what yet. But I don't advertise that.
Oh, sorry.
No, I'm just messing with you. Everybody knows.
Yeah, we talk about beer all the time.
Casey's just constantly.
All the time. Constantly. Gosh.
I think last time was the first time.
Yeah, okay. It was,
but anyway, so those are the things going on at church right now. Just a lot of stuff. Obviously we're still kind of just moving along. Everything's kind of coming back with Sunday school, confirmation, all that kind of fun and exciting stuff. So, yeah. And the flavored coffee of the week this past week was chocolate cherry. And it was fabulous.
Mystic Monk
coffee, brewed by the Catholics.
Cool.
All right. Do you have anything else to add?
I do not. I have nothing else.
So we have coffee fellowship with the Roman Catholic Church now.
Coffee fellowship, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, altar pulpit, no, but coffee,
yeah.
yes.
Okay.
We'll drink the coffee. So anyway, that is all the time that we have for this evening. Thank you, everybody, who for listening, and those of you that are listening. Wait. Before I go, oh my goodness gracious, we had a challenge this last week.
Oh, that's right.
And I will readily admit that I got the Facebook post up super late, yesterday, super late. Now, a huge part of that reason was because I was actually working on getting the podcast on different platforms.
Oh.
And so that was one of the things I was able to accomplish, but that was why I had kind of a delayed post. Now that being said, we're now available on Google Podcast, on Stitcher, on Spotify, on TuneIn.
Nice. Wow.
Still have iTunes and Pandora.
Oh, wow. So
we have quite a few options now. Probably won't be posting the links for all of those, but basically our podcast is everywhere. Oh, and it's also on our church app. I almost forgot that one. But anyway, I, of course, mentioned Orphan Grain Train last week. But we also had somebody mention the Lutheran Church Charities and especially the work with the Comfort Dogs. And I'll be honest with you, I couldn't agree more. If you've ever worked with the Comfort Dogs, they are the best, most awesome dogs ever. They really, really are. We'll have to talk about them at some point, but I just don't know if we have time tonight.
Well, and let's, since it just got up, we'll tell people to go on there. The challenge was to find charities that really, because we've talked about there's some charities that are sort of they're their mission is completely outlined, but people don't realize that like they're not actually giving money to like research or anything. They're just an organization raising awareness, and so people donate thinking I'm helping out. Like and so the idea was to go on that post and find a charity that really does do something you find
meaningful.
Meaningful and share it so that we can all see.
So we'll continue this on for the next week, and I'll try to get the post up a little sooner. So, all right. Well, that's all that we have time for today. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and God's blessings. And, well, talk to you next time.
Yeah.
Bye.